Welcome to this explainer. Today we're going to dissect an ancient legendary trap to figure out exactly why smart, incredibly powerful people willingly walk right into disaster. We're looking at a huge pivotal moment in the epic Mahabharata, and we're specifically zeroing in on the sequence of events that leads a king to just surrender everything he has. How does a rational leader get boxed into a corner where absolute self-destruction feels like the only option? Well, let's dive in and find out. What man is there who, knowing all this, will consent to gamble? You can just hear the sheer desperation in that question, right? King Yudhishthira asks this right before he makes a decision that literally ruins his empire. I mean, think about it. Have you ever known without a doubt that something was a terrible idea, but you felt completely obligated to do it anyway? That is exactly where our subject finds himself. He sees the trap, he acknowledges the danger, and yet he steps forward. To understand why, we have to look at exactly how the bait was delivered. So let's start with section 1, the reluctant messenger, delivering the bait. There is an intense, massive contradiction right at the heart of this trap. On one hand, you have the official invitation from King Dhritarashtra, delivered by his messenger, Vidura, claiming he just wants the Pandavas to sit to a friendly match at dice. Right, friendly. But then you have Vidura's own personal warning. Now, Vidura is a wise man. He's traveling on fast, high-mettled horses commanded completely against his will to deliver this message. And he openly tells Yudhishthira that he tried to talk the king out of it, warning him that gambling is the root of misery. The messenger himself is practically screaming that the invitation is toxic. Moving on to section 2, the royal trap, spotting the red flags. Yudhishthira is no fool, okay? He immediately spots the red flags. He notes out loud that sitting down for a dice match inevitably leads to quarrels. He knows for sure this isn't just a friendly family game night. And Vidura confirms those suspicions, giving this stark warning that King Dhritarashtra is entirely focused on his own power and aggrandizement. The king built a brand new palace and invited his powerful nephews, not for a reunion, but to assert total dominance. The trap is set, and honestly, the intent is crystal clear. Which brings us to section 3. The roster of cheats, an ancient lineup of villains. Realizing just how terrifying the stakes of this friendly game are, Yudhishthira asks exactly who is waiting at the table to play against them, and Vidura rattles off this absolute nightmare roster of cheats. These aren't casual players. The sources describe them as some of the most desperate gamblers who constantly rely on deceit. But the name that really jumps out is Sakuni. He's the king of Gandhara, notorious for being adept at dice, highly skilled with his hands, and utterly desperate in his stakes. So Yudhishthira is being asked to walk into a hostile palace to play game of chance against a literal syndicate of proven frauds. Let's look at section 4, the illusion of free will, the psychology of fate. Okay, so if Yudhishthira knows it's a trap, and he knows the players are cheats, why on earth does he still say yes? Well, this is the psychological crux of it all. He rationalizes his surrender to this terrible situation by invoking Kala, or time and fate. He basically states that the whole universe is under the control of its maker, guided by fate, and that humanity just isn't free. He truly believes the situation is completely out of his hands. And by framing the universe that way, Yudhishthira relieves himself of the burden of choice. It's wild. The trap works because the victim convinces himself that avoiding it is metaphysically impossible. But it's not just cosmic fate at play here. It's also heavy social conditioning. He is bound by his eternal vow. Think of this as an ancient equivalent of a deeply toxic obligation. Yudhishthira explains that while he really doesn't want to gamble, his strict code of honor dictates that if he's formally summoned to the assembly house and challenged by the wicked Sakuni, he simply cannot refuse. The trap brilliantly leverages his greatest strength, his unwavering honor, and flips it into a fatal weakness. This whole realization is perfectly and devastatingly captured right here. As Yudhishthira commands the travel preparations to be made immediately, he utters this tragic admission of his own powerlessness. Like some brilliant body falling before the eyes, fate depriveth us of reason. He knows he's being stripped of his logic. He feels literally tied by a cord, submitting to providence. He's walking right into the fire with his eyes wide open, feeling entirely justified by duty and destiny. Section 5. March to the capital, entering the lion's den. So, the very next day, acting without any further deliberation, the Pandavas set out. They travel to Hastinapura, bringing the women of the household, including Draupadi. And when they arrive, they go through the whole charade of familial warmth, embracing their elders. But the underlying tension, it is immediate and it's visceral. The text notes that the women of Dhritarashtra's household are instantly filled with jealousy at Draupadi's blazing beauty and prosperity. This trap isn't just about land or wealth. It's steeped in this deep-seated, toxic familial envy. The environment is immediately hostile. Next up, Section 6, the calm before the game, a chilling routine.
What follows in the text is this deeply unsettling contrast between the grim doom that we know is coming and the opulent, completely mundane routines the royals engage in. Knowing that they are facing Sakuni the very next day, what do the Pandavas do? Well, they perform their daily physical exercises, they do their religious rites, they deck themselves in the most fragrant sandal paste, eat the absolute best-tasting food, and literally go to sleep in jewel-furnished chambers, serenaded by sweet music. They spend a delightful night in pleasure and sport. It is chillingly normal. They're entirely enveloped in the luxury of their royal status, seemingly completely oblivious to the fact that this is the last night they will ever experience this kind of peace.
And then, the pacing just rapidly speeds up. On the morning of the game, right at dawn, they're cheerfully woken by bards playing sweet music. Early morning, they rise, perform their usual rites, and then by mid-morning, they march straight into the assembly house. Think about that. There's no last-minute strategy meeting, no desperate attempt to flee. They walk into the room and they are immediately saluted by the people already waiting there, ready to gamble. The trap has snapped shut. As the doors of that assembly house close behind them and the infamous dice game is set to begin, we are left with a profound dilemma. Yudhishthira had all the information. He had the warnings. He knew exactly who his adversaries were. Yet, bound by his interpretation of fate and his unyielding vow to his own honor, he sat down at that table anyway. So this leaves us with a critical question to ponder as we wrap up this explainer today. When our own modern codes of duty, obligation, or professional honor demand that we walk into a clear trap, at what point does our honor simply become self-destruction? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating anatomy of a trap with me. Keep questioning the things you feel obligated to do, and I'll catch you next time.